It's not just about productivity. That's the wrong message. Do not say that to your team. That is insulting. We need you to be more productive. Screw you. It's about getting to meaningful work so you can move faster, so you can make an impact, right? We're human. We all are here to make an impact. We're not here to sit in meetings all day long.
Hey, Nicole, what do you get when a former corporate CEO and a do-gooding executive walk into a recording studio?
Well, Erin, nothing, because the two of us are usually on my couch or Zoom, because wine.
You get a podcast created for Gen X women who are bought into the corporate world, but fed up with the BS.
I know. It's how to thrive the 9 to 5 or 6 or 7.
Yeah, it's career therapy. It's comedy. It's definitely full-on authenticity. Basically, we give you tangible strategies to rise in your career without compromising everything else.
Because work doesn't have to suck.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Because Work Doesn't Have to Suck podcast, where we like to help Gen X-ish leaders who should be at the top of their career, but they just don't feel like they are, and they need a little inspiration to do things differently, shake things up, and be more authentic. And this is Erin, one of your co-hosts. Nicole, my other co-host, is off doing real work while I'm recording podcasts. And if you haven't listened before, I'm a former corporate CEO turned professional pot stirrer and authenticity aficionado. Or really, basically, I'm obsessed with authenticity. And that's what I talk about and speak about. And that is the thread in this podcast. And speaking of obsessed, I am obsessed now with this guest. You can probably hear it in an interview as I increasingly get more and more of a crush on Lisa Bodell, our guest today. So Lisa is the founder of FutureThink. She's the author of 2 best-selling books, Why Simple Wins and Kill the Company. I love it. She's a keynote speaker. She's just a badass. She's a major contributor to a lot of publications, Forbes and others. And she really talks about innovation through simplicity, which sounds buzzwordy, is not. She is no BS like me. I actually also learned she's from Michigan like me. So you're going to get Midwestern, no bullshit, honest information. And here are some of the things that you'll hear if you tune in. First of all, why your busy schedule and crap work is, at least in part, your fault. Yeah, tough love. But she also tells you what you can start doing differently to change that and not be a victim of it. We also talk about this concept of a simplicity champion. And actually, I didn't even know this. There's like chief simplicity officers at companies. And I don't know how I was this many years old. Is that the saying? Like basically today, I learned about that. But she talked about what they are and how they can fuel not just innovation, but also your culture, without saying you're working on culture at your company, and also get rid of the shit. So it's like 3 birds with 1 stone. We also talk about how you need to stop giving away time without thinking, the most unrenewable resource. And actually, she gives a 2-word phrase, which if you've listened before, I freaking love when our guests give us like one simple question or these 2 words or these 3 words. So she gives us a 2-word phrase that is so powerful on how you can change the game with that, and some examples of how to do that. We also talk about her kill a stupid rule tool or a process, what that looks like and what it can spur, and some examples of how she's done that with other companies. It's freaking genius. And then we also talk about how her 2 biggest buck that moments, I ask her about her buck that stories, were really to mostly shove aside other people's advice and strong opinions and push back, and will inspire you to do the same from time to time. Really trust your gut. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy this interview as much as I did with Lisa Bodell. I want to start with one of the quotes that stopped me dead in my tracks of yours. It says, swap the force of habit for the spark of original thinking. And, it seems like that's sort of everything you talk about. Tell us more what's behind that sort of quote.
I think one thing I say to people is they get very comfortable because they feel like they're organized and they're in a groove, but really they're in a rut, because doing the same things might feel good, but you're not growing. And so I think in order for us to grow, we have to get a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But I also think is that we have to really be able to stop and question the work that we're doing so we can make space for more original thought.
Yeah.
So when I ask people, what do they spend their day doing? Most of them say meetings and emails. And when I say, what do you wish you had time to do? They say thinking. So, the reason I'm a big proponent of simplification is it's important for people to challenge, is this really worth my time? Is this meaningful work? What can I get rid of to make the space for this thinking and unconventional time to happen? Because there's a million ways we can come up with excuses, but I want to give people the tools so they get rid of what's stopping them and they can start spending more time on things that matter. That's basically it.
Yeah, I mean, I think this topic is going to strike such a chord with our audience that most people say, yeah, but, right? Like, I know I'm in this big job. I'm supposed to spend most of the time doing business development, strategic thinking, et cetera. But the enterprise has too many meetings, or, we have too many demands on us. When somebody says that, what's first step? Like, people are, you're all about simplification to drive innovation. I freaking love it. But like, what's the first step? How do people, sort of turn the corner from their crazy ways?
Well, first, you have to get rid of the myths, which is people think that being organized, like Marie Kondoing your life, being organized is not being simplified. I mean, anybody here that's been on, right, that's been in like a carpool with people. Yeah, everyone's got a date, but no one can seem to get it together the day of. Like, it's not being organized. It's not the same thing as simplified, right? So the idea is, it's not about organizing so you can do everything. It's about getting rid of, running that subtraction has value. So you can focus on the meaningful things. So that's number one, dispelling the myths and realizing that subtraction has value. The next thing is admitting that we play an active role in complexity and we choose it more than we think with the best of intentions. So people at work, the reason that you have all these Frankenstein processes is because people are trying to move fast. They're trying to get things done, but they don't realize that they create the beasts that we become a slave to. And another thing that we need people to recognize is that they need to be more intentional with their time. They give it away without thinking. And we have too much of our time hijacked by the unplanned and unnecessary. And it is a non-renewable resource. You will never get it back. And it is time to be just as upset. Like when people waste your money is when they waste their time. Waste your time. It's not okay.
Yeah.
So how do they start? First of all, once they realize, maybe I do create complexity. Wow, I really do need to be more intentional about my time. Then we have to get rid of the excuses. There are a lot of things in our sphere of control that we can do. So when people say, well, I can't do that. I work at a large company, or, oh, if we're regulated. My response to that is stop it. Because there are people in pharmaceutical companies. Pfizer does a great job of it. How do you think they got a vaccine market? We trained 40 of their simplicity champions around the world. That's how. Versus other pharmaceutical companies are drowning in complexity because they don't make it a priority. So people need to realize that those are excuses and that there's more in their sphere of control than they think. Meetings, emails, decision-making, agendas, inviting less people to meetings and more, being able to identify and question stupid rules that you do with your team every day. There are things you can do to get time back on a micro and a macro level that you don't need the CEO to approve you doing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So you're so singing what I sing, people don't hate their jobs. They hate the junk, right? They hate the BS. They, and actually my next book, there's a whole chapter on cut the shit. It's called the 50% rule. And one of them is just like, how do you cut 50% of the shit out? So I love this. You have some tools, freaking love. You have killing complexity tool and the killer questions tool, but you also have the kill a stupid rule. And because I'm the authenticity
They're most popular.
I freaking love kill a stupid rule just because of the name alone. Tell us about the kill a stupid rule tool.
Kill a stupid rule is probably the most popular thing we do because it's intuitive, right? If you could kill any 2 rules at work that hold you back from doing valuable work or reaching your goals, whatever, what would they be? And what happens is that people will flood you with information. So example, I brought up Pfizer. I did the CEO, Albert, when he became CEO, I did his leadership offsite with their top 800. And his initiative was we need to simplify because we need to move faster, right? Simplification is the front end of innovation because it creates the space for meaningful things to happen and you stop the mundane. So with his blessing, I did a kill a super rule with 800 people. And in that room, in 10 minutes, we had over 1,000 rules identified. And within an hour, we had killed dozens of them. And they estimated that they saved over $250,000. And what was interesting is most of the things that they came up with weren't rules. It was sphere of control, meetings, emails, reports, redundancies, too many people, not enough information, lack of decision-making, too many layers of decision-making, things that Albert, the CEO, then got up on stage and he said, "Are you waiting for me to tell you that it's okay to get rid of these things?" And they were like, they felt stupid because no, why would they? Do you need Albert's permission to tell you it's okay to have a 30-minute meeting, not a 60-minute meeting? So just making people feel empowered, but letting them know that you don't just want them to, but you expect them to challenge work and get rid of the crap is really important. Killing stupid rules is cathartic and productive.
Oh my gosh, I love it. And what about these? You have these simplicity champions. I love that. Tell us more about how does that look, feel? What do they do?
Well, the idea was they took their innovation champions because, innovation was a thing about 10 years ago. Everyone had to be innovative, but the problem with innovation became more brainstorms, more meetings, more ideas. So everyone then became overwhelmed by innovation. It was like they'd seize up, like, I don't have time I can't. But then when they turned them into simplicity champions, they became the subtraction group. They were the ones that would go around the world and actually help Pfizer kill stupid rules. Their job was we trained them how to, within group's sphere of control, they became the champions that would help a team kill rules and then come back and continually every quarter do it again. Because rules are like weeds, they grow back. You have to weed the garden. But what was cool is by doing it, these 40 champions would meet on a quarterly basis and you would hear similar things. So in this region, obviously decision-making is an issue. Over here, they are drowning in emails. They had figured out their culture and what it drives is that it lets you realize that work is culture. Culture is the work you do every day. And once they got the work right, they got the culture right. And people started to stay more and be happier at work. So that was, they started out as innovation champions, but what they really became as simplicity and culture champions. They changed the culture.
That's so cool. Like somebody comes to you and says, we need to be more innovative. And you're like, no, first you have to cut out the shit, right? The stupid stuff. And
That's
then to make space, and that space will not only help you innovate, but it'll actually inherently fix your culture, which I absolutely love.
And the thing I'll tell you that's really surprising about simplicity that people don't realize is it's a health and wellness issue.
Yep.
And people don't realize they underestimate the impact and importance of getting work right. And what happens when you have people that simplify and they do more great work, they're more present, they're focused, they're happier, they're less stressed, they trust more. So rather than all this performative wellness crap that we have going on at offices, like, yoga benefits that I never get to use because I'm too busy, or meditation rooms that I could never use anyway because they're filled with people trying to do conference calls. Like this performance crap goes away. And what people want? They want to go home at night when someone says, "What'd you do today?" They want to say something interesting, not "I sat on conference calls all day."
Yeah.
Get the work right. Simplicity helps you get the work right. And people like work. It's much better. Yeah, it's cool.
I mean, I'm going to try to not get all like too giddy because you're just singing a pillar of something, just like one of the many pillars of authenticity that I believe so much. And then one of the quotes in the book is like, if you want to be a good leader, come up with ideas, but if you want to be a great leader, like get rid of stupid shit. And that's not the quote because I can't remember what it is. It's more pithy and cool.
But that's the idea.
That's exactly what it is. Like,
but that's the idea.
I think
people want ideas, but that's kind of like when you come out of a brainstorm and nothing happens with the ideas, it's because no one has time. And so like, I don't need more. I need value. So I need more space. And I'm not going to innovate because I don't have time to think. Like, are you kidding me? I love what you talk about, which is this authentic leadership, which isn't saying the performative stuff, which is work-life balance. Work-life balance, I'm in meetings all day. Or I want you to have good mental health. Well, then don't give me a yoga benefit. I'm never going to use, that means nothing to me. So I think people leaders that are champions for getting rid of, like they can be snowplows, but I'd rather have them be garbage trucks, to be honest, where they like come by and they take away the shit. And that to me is like a great leader. That's really having my back.
I love it. I love it. Hey, did you know that August 16th is National Roller Coaster Day? It's so ridiculous. I freaking hate roller coasters. So whatever. But it is also National Authenticity Day on August 16th. And here's the coolest thing about National Authenticity Day. Besides, us being obsessed with authenticity, you can actually make someone else's day. And you don't get to do this very often. Every year, we, The Authentic Inc., the company that's behind this podcast, sponsors what we call the National Authenticity Awards. And it culminates on National Authenticity Day. And that's just when we recognize leaders, everyday workers, and companies that inspire the crap out of others with their authenticity. And you should totally nominate someone. I mean, can you think of a better way to give back to someone you work with than putting them on the grandstand of the authenticity goats? It's cheap, it's free, and it's such a great thing to do. So to nominate someone or a company, it's easy peasy. You just go to nationalauthenticityday.com and click on the link in the upper left-hand corner. Nominate them now. So stop listening, go nominate. You have a little 2-word saying, which are one of my favorite things to explore on podcasts, is like, what's the one little question, sentence that, yes, if. That's so powerful. Tell us about yes, if.
Thank you for bringing this up, because I think it is so powerful. We all know, from coming from creativity, everyone preaches in improv about yes and, right? It's about saying yes and building on. And I got to tell you, in the world that we're in, my reaction to that is don't do it, because that's where you get into obligation. What we want, if we're going to put boundaries around our time and focus on valuable things, you might not be able to say no. So you need to say yes, if. So yes, I can do it if we trade off these priorities. Yes, I'd be happy to take this on if we can subtract these things, or if I can. You're putting the boundaries around how you can create a two-way success. I think we're treating time too much as one way. Like people make a request and we say yes or no. It should be on both of us, right? It's not my job to be the bad guy. It's both of us to decide. So if I say yes, if, and you say, oh, I can't help you with that. Now it's not just my fault. It's yours too. You weren't willing to play. So you can't have my time.
What other ifs are in there? Like that you can take away things, whatever. Where have you seen people get creative with the if?
Wow. That's a really good one. Let's see. What would be some of them? People have asked for raises. Yes, if I get a raise. Yes, if I can do it, they change the time. I'm trying to think of creative ones. Yes, if I can be a part of it, meaning like, yeah, I'll do the dirty work if you'll then let me be a part of the good stuff. And I thought that was really interesting, because a lot of times with bosses, it's, can you get this done for me? But then you never see the outcome, or you don't feel like a hero and you don't feel like you're making impact. So I've seen people actually at 3M and Google say, yeah, not only will I do it, but I'd like to be a part of it going forward. And that kind of throws people for a loop, like, oh, I guess I can't just use you.
Brilliant. One that comes to mind, which I'll use it as a bridge to talk about one of the things that I think is the most bullshit work and is the biggest thing to cut out. It would be yes, if I don't have to do an 87-page PowerPoint. Talk to us about flipping PowerPoint.
So a PowerPoint and, all the things, the Slidos, the decks. I think, like meetings and emails, it would be dumb if somebody comes in and says, no, we don't need those anymore. They're kind of a part of business. It's not, do we need them? It's how. And the issue with PowerPoint, I think, is fear. So what drives a lot of people's needing to have more or fit more on a deck or have more slides or whatever is fear. Their fear of being fired, their fear of looking dumb, so they have more.
Yeah.
If the leader sets the tone of less PowerPoint, more presentation, taking you at your word and having a conversation versus a deck, that sets the tone for us to not have to have those crutches anymore. Yeah. So a lot of this has to do with fear and trust. And those are inversely related, right? More fear, less trust. More trust, less fear.
Sure.
So I think leaders could spend more time They talk a lot about getting rid of friction and processes because that's the non-human part of it, but they need to spend more time getting rid of fear. And leaders are usually the biggest culprits of it. They create the fear.
Yeah, fear of looking wrong, looking not right, looking not like we're working hard enough, like we're not creative enough. Yeah, it was a massive problem when I was, at the big enterprise, and still is. I know there in many places, right? And I used to always scream like I have a math degree, not an art degree, like, and yet still I would get sucked into changing the icons and the pictures, and I'm like, I'm probably better suited to use other time. So when I look at some leaders at the top, I just desire them to get that every deliverable and everything that they ask for, there's an opportunity cost loss, whether it's the presentations or the preps for the meetings. Like if you're sort of senior level and you're listening to this, because I have a lot of senior level friends, they're out there. What's the tough love advice that you'd give them? And what do you want to have them wake up tomorrow and start doing that they're not doing to help from the top down, knowing that, it can happen in both directions?
First thing I would do is define meaningful work, because they all say, well, I of course would love to get rid of stuff so they could focus on meaningful work. And when I talk to leaders, I go, yeah, what is it? And then they give me a 7-bullet answer. You need to define it, and you need to communicate it and define it with your team, because that's the compass, right? When we finally have space and no more shit, what are we going to do? And then the second thing is model the behavior, because what happens, example, Albert at Pfizer, he was the chief simplicity officer before he was the chief executive officer, right? And he told people, because they were droning, they couldn't get anything done in meetings, he said, say no to meetings. That's kind of cool. And a month later, because they can look at Outlook and see people's time spent, everyone was still going to meetings, and he was pissed. And so he asked his chief of staff what was going on, and he said, you still go to all the meetings. So until he said no, no one else said no. So it's very important, because fear drives complexity, that you model the behavior.
100%. You're singing my praises. Oh my gosh. Yes, girl. I mean, that's one of the 6 pillars of my strategic authenticity humans, and M is modeling. I couldn't agree more. But you just skimmed past something pretty monumental. I got to go back to. So Elford was the chief simplicity officer before he was the chief executive officer. So A, they had a chief simplicity officer, and B, the dude that focused on simplicity got the top job. Can we go back?
Imagine that. Well, that's the other thing too. Well, chief simplicity officer is pretty, that's within the last 10 years. And there's a lot of organizations that have simplicity officers, simplicity team. Yeah. Like Vancouver City Credit Union, they have simplicity officer and a team trained on Agile that puts people through simplicity sprints, and people are rewarded, right, for getting rid of. Sanofi, they are rewarding people not just for what they do, but for what they stop doing. So there are many organizations now where simplicity is a strategic pillar. It's a strategic focus. Mm-hmm. And that means that we model the behaviors. We give people the tools to do it. We have teams that measure it and monitor it. So like at Pfizer, they would have a simplicity team that would gather all the stupid rules they killed and analyze them and say, how many hours, what do we save by doing this? And who do we reward for that? So I think you're going to start to hear a lot more about the simplicity effort, because it's not just about productivity. That's the wrong message. Mm-hmm. Do not say that to your team. That is insulting. Mm. We need you to be more productive. Screw you. It's about getting to meaningful work so you can move faster, so you can make an impact, right? We're human. We all are here to make an impact. We're not here to sit in meetings all day long. So I think that's important for people to understand. Simplicity drives more than just productivity.
Oh, that's super important. That's super important. Okay, I have 2 final questions for you, but before we do that, so we don't lose people, where can they follow you? They probably want to know so much more. What's the best way to connect with you?
Find me on LinkedIn, right? Lisa Bodell on LinkedIn. That's a great place. And, I've got a simplicity newsletter and all the things that I post there. Or they can go to futurethink.com, which is my company. And you can learn more about, our approach to simplicity, which I think is fun.
It's super fun. Okay. So two fun questions. Okay. So the first is, can you tell us a time where you bucked the norm? You went against advice, the trends, normal, and good stuff happened.
2 of them. One, when I was starting my business, I went to an old client And I said, what do you think about this idea? And he said, don't do it. I don't think you can do it. And of course, that really pissed me off. And he said, I don't think you're not creative enough to do it. He said, you're an account person. You're not creative. That just lit my fire even more, because this guy was from old school and he was like, you're in a box and that's the only box you have. So, then I started my company, and that was 20 years ago. The second thing I'll tell you was interesting when I wrote my first book called Kill the Company, because I like to, you and I talked about this.
Sure,
like being provocative, right? Yeah. I could have said, improve your company, but that's so boring. I wanted to kill your company, because that's I really want you to get rid of what's not working. Well, I went to my publisher and I said, the title's Kill the Company. And they said, absolutely not. Not going to sell. You can't do it. And I said, I'll break my contract. I feel that strongly about it because it's such a core part of my book. I'm not going to recreate the company or slightly improve the company. So we've got to be provocative because that's what people want. I stuck with it and it worked. So I think there's sometimes you feel in your gut like this is just the right way to go, and I stuck with it, and I'm glad I did.
Oh, freaking love it. That's awesome. All right, last question. If you could give people just one more piece of advice of how they can make work less suck, what would it be?
Yeah, I would. I should be simple, but I'm giving you two. One is stopping it. Like, look at all your stuff and realize, what can I stop doing? Because you do more out of obligation than you think. So, can I stop going to this meeting? Can I stop doing this? What's the worst that could happen? The second thing is asking yourself what's stopping you, because I think that's what really gets to the emotion behind it. And because I do this all the time. I tell this story about the iPhone of when I broke my iPhone, and I would complain to my husband every night, like, oh, this and that from today. And my phone still doesn't work. And after a while, he just looked at me and he's like, what is stopping you? You're the boss. You go into Grand Central. You walk by an Apple store every day. What is your deal? And I was so pissed off. I went and got my phone the next day, because what was stopping me was nothing. I just was not making time for it. And I think if other people really faced the fact that they create their barriers, they wouldn't be the victim in their own story all the time.
Mic drop. So good.
Good.
Thank you so much, Lisa. This has been great. I kind of feel like
Thank you.
What's running through my head. Are you a Tommy Boy fan? You watched the movie Tommy Boy with right.
That guy in a little coat, yes.
That guy in a little coat. And you remember that scene where he talks about sales and how he's really bad at sales, and like he gets a relationship, and then he gets the role, and then he starts going everywhere with her. I feel like I'm in that scene because, like, meeting you, there's just so many things. It's lighting so many fires for our audience, for me.
I'm so glad.
I feel like, and we talked off record. We're both from Michigan. We share sort of, there's a certain DNA to Michigan women. So I'm going to try not to like go crazy, but I'm just like so excited to have met you and have gotten to share this message with our group.
It's kismet. I really appreciate it. You've got a provocative but practical vibe, and that's my style. So.
I love it. And you're pithy too. Impressive. Hey, it's Erin with a teeny request. If you have ever gotten any value from this podcast and you'd like us to stick around, plus you want it to continue to grow so we can kind of swindle bigger and more knowledgeable guests to join us, and to keep providing you with tangible and inspiring actions you can take to achieve the career and life you deserve, could you please just take 1 minute to leave us a rating and a review? Those reviews go a long way in attracting guests to the show, and candidly, they really make Nicole and I's day. We see you. We really do. So when you have the time and inspiration, we'd love to see a rating and review from you. Thank you.